Previously on Theatre of the World.
Theatre of the World is in danger of becoming stale.
Like my cake. My cake is stale now.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I have a fantastic new segment idea. It's called Mark Grabs a Stranger.
And what does it involve?
I don't know, but it has a theme song. Wherever there are people, wherever there is danger, who's that running up to you? Mark grabs a stranger.
It sounds like the segment is just about me grabbing strangers.
Well, possibly, but at least this time you can tell the courts you were doing it for a podcast episode.
That seems to imply that I've grabbed strangers in the past for non-podcast reasons.
Does it?
Hey guys!
Hi, Chris.
I'm not Chris. I'm the head of the Theatre of the World Tech Department.
You sure look like Chris.
I'm not Chris. My name is Chris.
Chris.
Yes, and I have a new update to the software we use when we write our material for the podcast. All we have to do now is download this app, project our device's screen onto a whiteboard, then make changes with a whiteboard marker, take a photo of the whiteboard, print the photo, and then fax it to ourselves. Nothing could be easier.
You sound a lot like Chris too.
I'm not fucking Chris!
All right.
I've wet myself.
The world is full of fantasy.
Man Bites God presents Theatre of the World.
Exaggeration. Unless I know the truth.
Hey everybody out there listening in Earland, we're Talkland. And Earland and Talkland, they are neighbouring communities.
Twin cities.
New Zealand.
Welcome to Theatre of the World. I'm James.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Chris.
And here's what happens on Theatre of the World. Every time you hear a podcast, what we do is we take one word and we use that word as the inspiration to do a whole show for you. That word might inspire poetry. It might inspire stories, conversation, song, rambling, insane theories. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're listening and we appreciate your ears.
True.
Today's word is power. Yeah,
Power.
Whisper it in your minds like a word that you think about at night. And the way we start the show every time we do the show is we turn to Mark and we say, Mark, power. We know what the word is, but we don't know the story behind the word. Perhaps you could make it clearer for us with fact bombs.
Fact bombs, fact bombs. Mark's got a fact bombs.
Still singing the theme song after 5 years.
Mark Power.
If any of our listeners are of the Hebrew faith and listening to this episode between sundown on a Friday and sundown on a Saturday and are of the Orthodox or conservative persuasion, then they may well be breaking one of the most important mitzvahs of the Torah, the observance of the Shabbos, also known as Shabbat or the Sabbath. Orthodox and some conservative authorities rule that turning electrical devices on or off is strictly prohibited as a malakha. However, there is some level of disagreement as to exactly which one. Tiny sparks that are created
What
in
was it called? Sorry, what was it called again? A malak.
malakha.
That's interesting because malaka is Greek for wanker.
Yeah.
It's also there's straits in Malaysia. The Straits of Malacca. Fact bombs.
Addendum.
Footnote. Tiny sparks that are created in a switch when a circuit is closed may constitute lighting a fire and extinguishing a fire when turned off. A device plugged into an electrical outlet of a wall becomes part of the building but is non-functional while the switch is off. Turning the appliance on would then constitute building, and turning it off would be considered demolishing. One way around this rule is to employ a Shabbos Goy, a Gentile or non-Jew who assists with switching lights and devices on and off. However, the Chabad, the largest and best-known Hasidic movement in the world, has a hardline view on this and says on its website, chabad.org, that the basic rule of thumb as far as having a Gentile do work for a Jew on Shabbat is that if a Jew may not do it, a non-Jew cannot do it for him. This is true whether or not the Jew specifically asks the non-Jew to do the work, or if the non-Jew does it on his own, whether the non-Jew is paid for his efforts or not.
Okay, so that's the Hasidic view, but what's the Halkaline view? Power.
However, even with the Chabad, exceptions do apply, and these include that if the non-Jew is also directly benefiting from the work, it's fine. So safe to say then, if any of our listeners are Jewish Orthodox and listening to this episode on Shabbos, sitting beside them will likely be a Shabbos Goy also enjoying the podcast. And to them we say, Mazel Tov.
Bless you.
Fact bombs.
Fact bombs.
I assume
Yes.
if you're listening to this podcast and you are Orthodox Jew,
Yes.
then you're not actually listening to it because it would employ some sort of electronic device. What you're doing is you're getting a goy to actually describe the podcast to you.
Oh no! But they
repeat it.
get the goy to the Shabbos goy to switch on the podcast and listen to it, and the Shabbos goy is just listening
So
to
you
it
can,
and
you can
enjoying
get the
it.
benefit of electrical equipment. You just can't turn it on.
As long as it's benefiting the Shabbos goy equally.
Fair, just as fair comment, I also would like to put out there that if you are a Hasidic Jewish person that cannot use a podcast on the weekend, that will come and do it live for a price.
What?
Well, that's not bad.
You
That's
know,
we can monetize this.
We'll come and hang out.
We'll do a
live.
lounge room tour.
We'll do a
Yeah.
lounge room gig. Why not?
by candlelight.
Okay.
You know,
I'm game. I think I'm not sure about this, but I had a look at myself in the mirror the other day, and I think I'm kosher.
certainly gosha.
What?
I don't know.
I define you
It's like a geisha, but more like a kind of a ghostly geisha,
like a gopher,
like a gopher,
like a geisha,
like a
gopher,
dead
ghostly.
geisha that was a gopher.
This is all.
That's so
that.
gauche, Chris.
This is beat poetry. What is going on?
If we run out of material, I do have the list of 37 different malakas.
I knew a fair number of malakas as well. I could probably list a few. Power, eh? Let's talk about power. Let's talk about unwittingly giving people power.
Yes.
So I have a story that I would like to relate to you about this very thing. My mother, a wonderful, wonderful woman. Can't say enough nice words about her. Apparently, she had a beautiful watch, a very important watch. That was a gift. She had it for years, and she worked in retail. And one day she looked down and she noticed that it just wasn't on her wrist anymore. It was gone. And she thought, oh no, I've lost my watch. What are you going to do? And as part of her retail job, she would often pack and unpack boxes, put stock on shelves and things like that. She figured it must have come loose during that, fallen into a box, it's in a bin, it's gone to a customer, it's somewhere, God knows where it is. Fine and good, time passes. A customer rings her up and says, excuse me, I opened the box that you sold me and I found a watch in it. And my mother says, that's my watch. I lost it. I thought I'd never see it again. Fantastic. Thank you, for calling me back. It's of great personal value. And the moment my mother said that, she gave the other person on the phone power because suddenly the other person on the phone didn't realize that there was some sort of monetary value associated with the watch. And this is a true story. The customer replies to my mother after calling her and telling her that she'd found a watch, so doing the right thing. The customer then says, is the watch valuable? I know someone who would love this. And then hung up.
Wow.
The end.
Jesus.
Never saw the watch again.
Never saw the watch again because, my mother being a lovely, trusting person just went, oh, wow, this person's rung up. They've done the right thing. And gave them the power of knowing that something was valuable and then had it taken away.
Yeah. Hard to know how to play that, though, because you could have gone, oh, that watch, piece of garbage. Yeah, bring it back in.
Yeah.
Well, why? I'm not going to go out of my way.
But why ring in the first place then?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
find a watch in a box and you're an asshole. You keep it or sell it or give it away or whatever. You don't ring up and then twist the knife.
Yeah, yeah.
So weird. It was like it was found by the Joker.
Has that been ruled out, though?
Oh, nothing's ruled out. It's still under investigation.
No, it's a mystery.
Yes, if you like.
Yeah.
Might have been me. Twist.
I don't know whether you guys realise, my father, his first job that he did was really into electronics. And what he
Can I
he
cut in
did-
here?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I cut in here?
Yeah.
We can't realise that. We either know it or we don't. We're not walking down the street one day and suddenly we come to the conclusion that Chris's father works in electronics.
I spent a lot of time looking at Chris's dad with a soldering iron.
Yeah.
But it's weird. I spent 5 years in a Tibetan monastery and I came out of it realising that Chris's father worked in electronics.
Semantics. But
I think some crazy antics.
so he was a television repair man in Brisbane.
Back in the days when you would get a television repaired. And
Exactly.
just stick it on the
Back in
nature
the
strip
days-
and buy a new one.
Back in the days when your television...
And
that
they
you could
call it
unscrew-
progress.
I'm here to repair the television. Wow.
So
wow.
he taught me a lot about electronics, but
Yeah.
also he's been into electronics all of my life. And but one of the most amazing and he,
Specifically from when Chris was born.
yeah, from
As
that
soon as
point.
Chris was born, he went, I'm going to get into electronics.
Do you know, the other day I realised that.
So he always instilled in me the idea that electricity is a dangerous force. And
A very reasonable thing for a parent to do.
But a lot of the stuff that I was working with was 9-volt batteries, which will give you a tingle on your tongue if you happen to lick it.
I know
Oh,
a few things that will give you a tingle on your tongue if you look at it.
Hey.
I've never done that.
Haven't you?
I've heard the rumours and I've never been game to try it.
How do you tell whether a 9-volt battery is good or not?
Yeah.
What I do is I put it in a device that takes a 9-volt battery, and if it works, it works.
Okay. Yeah.
My tongue doesn't take 9-volt batteries. It doesn't.
Anyhow, my father was very safe. He was very safe because he understood the dangers involved with working with electricity.
He respected electricity.
He respected it. Years later, when I was a teenager, he decided that my stepbrothers were wagging school, and
He decided that.
He went into a Tibetan monastery, and 5 years later, he came to the conclusion
that he self-actualized.
he didn't decide at all.
look, he was floating above.
Did he realize?
Yeah. So what he did was, and it's very clever, but what he did was he wired a timer into the electricity supply on the television so that, because he tried plug-in timers, but of course they could unplug that and plug it back in. So he opened the TV and wired in a timer to make the TV impossible to turn on between about 8:30 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. Which is, clever. It's a clever move.
Can I look? It is a clever move.
Yeah.
But as a parent,
Yeah.
would one of the other options have been confrontation?
Well, I think the confrontation had been done.
Okay, and
I don't want to get into the
boys will be boys.
I don't want to get into the details of my stepbrothers, but let's say they were very naughty.
They were bad hombres.
Yeah.
Bad eggs.
Yeah. One of my stepbrothers, when he had been deliberately taken to school and locked out of the house and not given a key to get back in again, actually smashed a window to get back into the house. So
The perfect crime.
yeah.
and then found out he couldn't watch television.
Yeah.
And then smashed another window to get out.
Do you guys understand how electronics work and how a device called capacitors work?
Hey, can I step in?
Yeah.
Mark does. I don't.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I know what a capacitor does.
a capacitor basically
Oh, it's Back to the Future.
is basically a battery. Yes, it is. It is exactly Back to the Future.
It
so
fluxes.
a capacitor will draw current in
Yes.
and act like a battery, so that it can deliver a higher voltage than the voltage being delivered.
How can you do that? Because surely you can't create more energy than you're getting.
Well,
in.
you're storing energy,
Oh.
and then you're going to pump it out. And because
Okay.
of the original CRT televisions required a lot of energy to get them started, which is why they flashed on, and there was a big power
That's the cathode
surge.
ray.
Correct.
Yeah, wow, we're all having an electronics lesson here. And
I knew some things.
so what happens is inside those old televisions, you had all of these capacitors, and one of those capacitors in particular basically loaded itself up to about 1 million volts.
That's
a
a lot.
million volts. That's
quite
a
a lot.
lot. And this is where I learnt how dangerous electricity is.
You put it on your tongue.
Because my dad, even though he understood his electronics and he knew how to short a capacitor, had obviously missed one of the capacitors in the TV. And while he was using the screwdriver, okay, a capacitor can hold charge after you've unplugged it. So he didn't have it plugged into the wall.
Because it's basically a battery.
It's a battery. I saw him putting the screwdriver into the television, and then the screwdriver flew across the room and smashed into the wall. And then we went to investigate the screwdriver after everybody had calmed down, and the entire end, about 1 centimetre of the top of the screwdriver, had been blown off the screwdriver. And that's when I learned, don't fuck around in televisions. The end.
The television industry is cutthroat.
That is hilariously on point with
Oh,
an
really?
anecdote that I have.
How hilarious.
Because as you guys may have realized, I fix a lot of my own things, my own gear.
Yes. I remember seeing you just take a MacBook apart,
Yep.
had it in 1,000 pieces on your bed in order to try and
That wasn't one of my
fix it.
that wasn't one of my wins, I'd have to say. That MacBook did not ever go back together quite right.
So the big question about that is obviously why was Chris in Mark's bedroom?
Because it was when I was in my share house and we were recording something.
Yeah,
Really?
but we were having a cuddle.
Really? Yeah.
You were there
sounds-
too, James.
Well, sure. I was probably filming it.
But I, over the years, have done a number of minor electrical repairs to various things, and probably installed some fairly sketchy, legal-wise PowerPoints in
Yeah.
various houses.
Yeah, well, very sketchy because you're not licensed.
No, this is true.
So
but
absolutely
one of them I
illegal.
did with someone who was on their way to becoming licensed. So,
Doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Close, so close.
but so I was a
Jails are full of people who are on their way to being licensed something.
So I was basically replacing some hardwired power cords in the back
Yeah.
of a couple of little practice amps that I had.
I see.
Amplifiers we're talking about here, and guitar amplifiers
Yeah.
specifically. And I'd replaced the power cord in one, had tested it before I'd slotted the top bit back into the little casing. It all worked. And then I'd not quite unplugged it turned out, from the PowerPoint that I'd plugged it in to test it. And then as I was sliding the top of the amplifier back into the box,
Yes.
my thumb, let's say, got close enough to part of the circuit that then caused the circuit to close. And so over the little
You became
minuscule
part of the
gap of the
circuit.
I
Yeah.
became part of the circuit.
Correct.
Yeah.
First time he'd ever felt like he was a part of something.
And so 240 lovely Australian volts went
Yeah.
right through my body,
Yeah.
probably about 10 amps.
Yeah.
And I ended up with a little spark lesion on my thumb, which
love a good
burnt
spark lesion.
right into my thumb.
Anyone listening, great name for a band. Spark Lesion.
And let me tell you, I'm not quite sure whether it made a noise. It definitely did in my head, but I'm not sure whether it did out loud or not.
Yeah.
It made a pretty big bang inside my own little brain box.
Yes, which was probably all the electricity
Yes.
rushing around your brain.
And then it sort of felt like someone had come up behind me, grabbed me by the shoulders, and violently shook me.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, the thing I was holding was ripped from my hands, like it had
Luckily.
like it had been attached to a car, and flew across the room. And I was quite lucky because 10 amps is roundabout where you start getting into the territory where it stops your nerve endings working properly and your muscles properly, and your muscles seize up and you can't let go of things.
Can't actually escape the
So that was quite good. But now this is really embarrassing to admit, but I only learnt today that I've been telling people in the years since this had happened that I'd been electrocuted, but I only learnt today that I had not, in fact, been electrocuted. I'd merely
it's a very common misconception.
Electrocution means death, and I am
like
more or less alive in many ways. And
You're only dead inside.
that's right.
I had a friend that I used to live next door to who claimed that he'd drowned several times. And I had to keep, this is when I was very young, and I had to keep reminding him that drowning was really the ultimate and you could only do it once.
Yeah. But see, I found out today that the word electrocution is a combination of the word electric and the word execution.
Yes.
And also applies to accidental deaths as had I died, this would have been an accidental death. But I just sort of feel that it's not fair for people like me who've had something that was potentially life-ending, and it's just called an electric shock. Because when I was at school, we would go to this stupid thing every week called chapel, which was basically a church service for 45 minutes in the middle of the day. And the carpet where we had that, you could rub your feet on and then touch someone on the ear and give them an electric shock.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing?
Yeah.
10 amps
Yeah.
through me.
It's sad, isn't
If it makes you feel any better, electrocution is another word also for speaking really good.
Yeah. Let's go.
I just feel there should be a better word.
Yeah, it's true.
Where's my parade?
Yeah.
Electro meat cute. I don't know. Who cares?
The new way to a complexion so lovely, only a smile can make you lovelier. New Noxema complexion lotion, Noxema complexion lotion.
Hey, let's talk about a different kind of power. Let's talk about superpower. Let's talk about a segment that I like to call Advice for Young People.
Advice for young people. Oi!
Because, the young people, I should preface this by saying, the young people, they're always at me.
Yeah.
James, they're saying. James, we've made the terrible mistake of having children.
Ugh, fools.
And they cry all the time. I've got to fucking cry to children!
These young people are a bit older than I was expecting.
No, young, in their 20s.
Young.
They have these fucking kids, and then they're like, they cry, and we can't kill them. It's not allowed. What do we do?
Yes.
What do we do?
Electrocution.
My grandmother... Yeah, exactly.
Controversial, Chris. Controversial parenting techniques.
Electric babies. My grandmother had a fantastic way of shushing a crying baby. And I used to think that this was just something everybody knew, because when it happens in your family, you go, oh, yeah, okay. But I've never known anybody else to try this. And what she used to do, and we're going to do a live demonstration, but what she used to do was she used to put her... This sounds like she's killing them. She's not.
Pillow.
She's going to put a pillow over... No. She holds it there for 5 minutes. No. She's going to... But what she would do is she would oscillate her hand back and forth in front of the crying child. So what I'm going to do for the podcast listeners is I'm going to get Chris to simulate a crying baby, and then I'm going to show you what my grandmother did to stop the baby crying. Ready? So when I look at you meaningfully, I want you to simulate a crying baby. You ready?
Yes.
So I don't know if you heard that, but what my grandmother used to do was she would,
Sounded mostly like a cat.
yeah, was she used to oscillate like so. So it turned the cry into sort of a stereotypical Indian,
Like you're shouting
strain.
into a
So
fan.
instead of going ah, you go ah, like that. And what would happen every time with a kid who was crying was the kid would stop crying because it was trying to work out where the noise was coming from because it was unearthly. And suddenly, like the kid would just stop crying and stop being upset because it would go, what the fuck was that? And it worked every time. My grandmother had the superpower of being able to stop babies cry just by blowing their minds.
Wow.
There you go.
There you go. Parenting tips.
Advice for young people. That's a genuinely good parenting
That is an
tip.
excellent. That's
Pretty good, and probably better than electrocuting them.
Probably.
I'd probably follow it up with electrocution.
I think it's the second stage.
So,
Fuck me.
you know something else?
By the way, I hope the podcast realised that I had to touch Chris's mouth to make that work
I had to watch it.
and film it.
So, you know what else is powered by electricity?
What, Segway boy?
The internet. Do you know what's on the
you speak the
internet?
you speak the truth, my friend.
Would it be Chris's website?
Well, why not?
Oh, Chris's website. Na-na-na-na-na-na.
Okay, this is what would be considered to be a very 90s website, but it's fun. It's a fun place to visit. If you
wouldn't want to live there.
let's say you weren't Jewish on a weekend because you need to go to the website and you wouldn't want someone else doing that for you.
Introduction's flown off the rails.
This is the worst segue yet.
This is a very long...
Oh, I envy our Hasidic listeners right now.
It's a very long website.
Your
address.
Shabbos Goy has turned this off.
So,
Let's just spin a trail.
of their own volition.
it is www.rps.net/CGI-bin
Oh, man, this is nice.
/stone/randpower.pl. I mean, probably could have shortened that.
The fuck is .pl?
I have no idea. At that website, you can enter your name and your gender,
Bank account details.
and bank account details, and when you go on holiday, and it will tell you what your superpowers are. So
I'm really surprised something with a much more modern URL hasn't been invented.
I just threw in our names to find out what's going on
Oh, very
And
good.
our bank account details.
with that.
Conveniently.
So
Apparently, I have the power to be embezzled.
I have been known to deflect deafening sounds.
Can you give me an example of when that would be useful?
Well, when you are in the midst of a very loud concert and you're worried that your hearing may be affected.
Isn't that true? Because didn't you get tinnitus for a while?
Yeah, I still
For
got
playing
it.
all the shows?
I still got it.
I was going to say, no one then loses to
No,
this.
it's very rare. Actually, it's better if you don't, because if you do, then there's something very wrong. He's also able to take control of gravity and bend it to his will, and he fights with a toxic polearm that also grants a wondrous ability to see into the past.
He, as in you.
As in me.
To see into the
I
past.
see into the past. It's a wondrous ability.
That's not a hell of a skill, like,
That
to be
is
honest. Like, I mean, that's...
incredible.
The most
I mean,
amazing superpower, I think, is that you have the power to turn pronouns around. Because you started about it being about your superpowers, and then by the end, you're talking about yourself in the third person.
yeah.
Is that your superhero name?
I'm-
Third person.
I'm just reading it from the website. He has mastered the ability to create mental energy out of thin air.
Yep, that sounds on point.
Yep. I've often thought that you were mentally energetic.
Unfortunately, Chris is infamous for being diseased.
What?
It's true.
What, with what? Like chlamydia?
Get ready. Everybody's going to have a vulnerability.
And yours is disease.
It's disease. Yeah.
Bummer.
Right. And Mark has mastered the ability to make beers.
Sounds right so far.
Yeah. Mark has
Disappear.
mastered the ability to make bees appear from nowhere. How about that? Additionally,
The apiarist.
he has been known to copy the physical attributes of his antagonists, and he is known for his awe-inspiring luck, but using this power makes him tiny for 2 days. Mark has the power to become almost weightless after a few bees,
Yeah.
but he must speak words of power to do so. I don't know what those words are. Here's his vulnerability. Tragically, Mark is especially vulnerable to wood-based attacks.
Well, cricket bats.
Somebody comes back at you with a plank.
Or a chair.
Yeah. He's
Beware
like,
Batman.
perhaps you can't even see the wood. It's just, it's invisible to you, so people can just hit you with a wood.
But wood is in his name. He's
I
Mark
know.
Woodward.
It's so weird, and I wonder if it had taken the wood element
Yeah.
out of your name.
Oh, perhaps.
James.
Hello.
James developed the talent to make duplicates of himself.
Like Michael Keaton.
Can I say why? I can tell you. It's because
Yeah.
it's the only way I'm assured a reasonable conversation.
Additionally, he fights with a wicked rifle made from adamantium.
Is that the 80s rock star?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
And
he
is
has-
wicked being used in the pejorative or the positive sense?
in the positive sense,
Yeah.
I think.
I realised that.
He has the power to confuse the smell of a combatant.
What?
Yes.
I can confound someone's smell.
Yeah.
Jesus.
The smell has no idea what it's doing.
Ah, this is crazy. This guy thinks it's chocolate, but it isn't. It's poo.
And this is where I realised that maybe this website is onto something. Tragically, James becomes completely incapable of computer use in the presence of gold.
Also, all other time.
Yep. Pop into that website and find out what your
I probably
powers
won't. That's too
and
many. That's too many letters to remember.
weird vulnerability is.
Yeah. There must be others.
Yeah,
That
there's-
aren't
just
weird.
Google something shorter.
Yeah.
Make a Bitly for it and then share
I
that.
thought about making a Bitly, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to have to say capital E, lowercase w. It's just too complex.
Christ. Superpowers giving a shit. Hey, I have a story in our series of stories for this series.
Uh-huh.
Our old friend Winks.
Winks.
The Adventures of Winks. Our Winks music would start now with a new adventure called Winks Helps a Weasel. Winks the ferret was woken from a troubling dream by a gentle tapping on his forehead. I'll be up in a minute, Mummy, said Winks sleepily, and then opened his eyes. Above him stood not Mother Ferret, but Adam, the manic-depressive weasel. Hi, Adam, said Winks happily. Hi, Winks, said Adam, the manic-depressive weasel. How did you get into my house? Asked Winks pleasantly. I don't remember, replied Adam, the manic-depressive weasel. I came around to ask you to help me get my favourite frisbee down from the tallest tree in Woodlands Park. I would be happy to help, Adam, said Winks, leaping from the bed. But tell me, Adam, why are you wearing my mother's clothes? I don't know, replied Adam, the manic-depressive weasel. Well, don't let my stepfather see you. Once, when my mother was away on a trip, he made me dress up like my mother for a whole week. Gosh, said Adam, the manic-depressive weasel. Yes, friendly Professor Badger down at the psychiatric unit of Woodlands Hospital says I've repressed most of those memories, said Winks, and laughed happily. Now let's go get that frisbee. The two friends made their way down to Woodlands Park, and Adam showed Winks the tree. There on the topmost branch was the prized frisbee. With surprising deftness and skill, especially for a ferret, Winks gracefully climbed and balanced his way to the very top in no time at all. Adam, the manic-depressive weasel, was so excited he clapped and did little cartwheels and then had to take some medication. With a gesture almost like a triumphant salute, Winks threw down the frisbee and smiled. And then a beehive fell on his head. Despite being stung numerous times on the face and head and plummeting several feet and landing with a sickening and bloody thump on the ground, Winks was in good spirits as Adam, the manic-depressive weasel, finally yanked the beehive from Winks' swollen skull. I feel fantastic, Fantastic, said Winks ecstatically. And we got your frisbee down. Several angry bees buzzed around them, shaking their tiny bee fists and saying the rudest, meanest things about Winks and his immediate family in their tiny, buzzy voices. But Winks was feeling too good to notice. I am very hurt, said Winks. Possibly. I am dying a bit. But I've never felt so serene and calm and lovely. This hive must have contained magic happy honey. You fool! Screamed Adam, the manic-depressive weasel, a little too loudly. Woodland's bees haven't made honey for ages. Due to economic woes, all the hives around here have been converted into illegal and secret tiny heroin processing plants. When the bee stung your face, they must have accidentally injected you with pure powdered junk. You're higher now than you were when you were up in the tree. There's no honey anymore? Asked Winks, only partially listening. That's why Hamish the bear has been so moody. He loves honey, and now he can't find any for his giant bear sandwiches, said Adam. I thought he was moody because he was a bipolar bear, giggled Winks, as a warm drool ran down his chin and puddled in his stomach. In his heroin-fueled joy, Winks had forgotten the town rule. You never make jokes about mental illness, especially in front of Adam, the manic-depressive weasel. Adam immediately ran away across the park and never spoke to Winks again. Winks didn't mind, though. He was too full of love and uncut street H to care, and he soon passed out in a moaning, gibbering heap in the dirt. When he woke up, 4 days later, he was upset to find that his whole body ached from withdrawal symptoms and junk sickness. He was also upset because he had been missing for 4 days and nobody had bothered to look for him. Winks' body could barely move, and yet he found the strength to somehow climb another tree in the park and plunge his hand into another beehive. Once again, the angry, drug-producing bee stung him, unwittingly injecting Winks with more of that fresh, pure China white that the Woodlands was becoming well known for. And Winks immediately felt better. For a while. Whenever he felt less happy, he would go looking for another hive to ransack. Winks began hanging out at the park all the time and took to wearing long-sleeve shirts to hide the sting marks on his arms. One day, Winks was at home, dozing dreamily on the floor of his room and listening to some light jazz, when there was a sharp knock at the door. Winks opened it, and there stood Boss B. Berkeley, the head of the entire illegal beehive heroin trade in Woodlands. "You have destroyed all of my hives!" shrieked Boss B in a high voice, "and that has made me very cranky." "Oh dear," said Winks with a tone of concern in his voice. The concern was not for anything that Boss B was saying, but because it had been hours since his last fix and he was jonesing bad. "You must stop misbehaving yourself," continued Boss B hilariously. "Have you just come from one of your heroin processing plants?" asked Winks with a strange look in his eyes. "Yes, but what has that got to do with anything?" buzzed Boss B. "You must be covered in heroin," murmured Winks. "It must be clinging to all the little hairs on your body." And with this slightly baffling statement, Winks threw Boss B. Berkeley into a small pot and proceeded to pound his tiny body with a mallet until it was dry, powdery dust. Then Winks snorted the dust up his nose with a small silver straw that he now wore on a chain around his neck. "I guess the Woodland heroin trade needs a new boss," said Winks to himself, and laughed so hard he didn't notice that 2 of his teeth had rotted and fallen out. Soon Winks was going to run his very own business. The end.
Winks has turned.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really-
Winks, always up to no good
Really
shenanigans.
turned. I wonder if Mark generated all those bees out of nowhere.
Maybe.
Mycoplasmal pneumonia. It's a profit-robbing disease, and the nagging, hacking cough in your pigs could mean that it has struck again. Fortunately, your cooperative and Land O'Lakes have the solution. Feed Land O'Lakes Pig Perk 1540 with Lincomix for 21 days at weaning. Research has shown Pig Perk with Lincomix reduces lesions and lung damage that reduce pig gains. Ask for Land O'Lakes Pig Perk 1540 from your cooperative today.
So way back in 2007, in January 2007, on January 16th, 2007, there were some pretty horrendous bushfires.
More than 10 years ago.
I know.
Wow.
This is stretching back into the archives.
I like it.
There were some pretty horrendous bushfires in Victoria, and in Benalla, in Victoria's northeast, power was cut to most of Victoria when ash and smoke severed major transition power lines connecting Victoria to the national power grid. And so that meant that me and my housemates at the time were at our jobs and couldn't do them anymore, and so got to come home early in the sweltering 40-degree heat that particular day. And we got to our house to find that it was blisteringly hot and there was no power. And so what we decided to do was go to our local pub, because we figured they'll be open.
They have a generator.
And they'll have, the stuff will be cold.
They'll have beer.
Yeah. They had no power either.
Yeah.
But we went in there and their beer was still cold. And so we sat there drinking beer for the rest of the day. And what they did, they turned it into a competition. They gamified the power outage by plugging a lamp to a power point and leaving it on the bar. And then whenever you went up to order drinks, you put down a time that you thought the lamp was going to come back on.
Right.
That's cool. Did they ask for money? Like, did you have to enter it like a raffle?
No, they were giving away a 6-pack or something like that.
Yeah, but you could only enter if you bought a beer.
Yeah.
So that's the price.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a cool idea.
And it was great. It was great because we sat there and it was like this pub, there was no music or anything like that because there was no power. And so we're sitting in the pub and it was like this real camaraderie and everyone's like, oh, when's the lamp going to go back on? And one guy got it. It was like 8:17 or something like that. And it was literally bang on 8:17. The lamp went on and the whole pub cheered.
That's cool.
It was amazing.
You know what that is? That is triumph over adversity.
Exactly.
Coke. I have a segment.
Okay.
Let's do it. I think it's the most popular segment of this series.
Fair enough.
No.
I'm really,
Oh, no.
really happy with the way this segment has been turning out.
I forget every fucking episode about this.
And that segment is called James Tells Mark About His Poo. Let's sing the theme song. James does different kinds of poos, and every week he's going to choose to tell Mark, who's reticent, about his poo and what it meant. Mark will sigh and be disgusted with James and his bottom custard, but Mark will remain unflustered. Let's talk poo, you crazy bastard.
As much as I hate this segment, I do like that theme song.
Yeah.
Well, you should release it, isn't it? I just feel like it's probably my best work.
Power edition.
I'll be honest with you. This is the 5th episode of whatever series we're doing, and I'm pretty much only doing this segment to sing the theme song now. But interestingly, I'm going to make a big confession, especially to Chris, because Chris and I shared a house for a number of years. And I don't know if Chris knows this story, but
Oh my God.
we got the
revelation.
landlords. We were renting a house, and the landlords one day painted the floor of the bathroom like battleship grey in this sort of thick, dull colour. It was a weird colour, and it was just like obviously the cheapest painted Bunnings that day, and it was just this grey, thick sheen. And I'd forgotten that they were painting that day, and I got home and I really needed a poo. Now, what happened was I needed a poo desperately, really needed a poo. It was important. And the only toilet was at the other side of some wet grey paint. And so I very carefully and gingerly laid out things in front of me that I could lightly tread on that wouldn't disturb the sheen of the paint. Which didn't work.
Like hoverboards?
I had to poo. So I went to the toilet and I realised that every step I took and then dropping my pants and my belt buckle, everything was indenting the paint and everything was fucking it up. And I was covered in grey paint. I didn't care. Greatest poo of my life. Needed it. But at the end of it, I realised a bit of me had paint on. And so
What? How?
not a bit of me, but like a bit of like my clothing and stuff
right,
had
okay.
like, you know, my bunched trousers. And
Yes.
Where did you do the
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't poo on the paint. But I kind of cleaned up as best I could, both myself and the room, and I walked out and I realised that I had left just telltale indentations and little footprints and things to get to the toilet. And I remember saying to Chris, the workmen have done a shithouse job. When he got home, I said, the workmen have left footprints in. This is a terrible job. We're right there. And I think Chris wrote to the real estate agent and said, look, this is not a great job that you've done there. But I don't think they ever corrected it. I think it was just indentations in the paint. Might still be there. I don't know.
I'm very fussy about.
But if it is,
work.
it's because I needed to do a poo.
Oh, that's just a constant reminder now. Isn't
It's
it?
good, isn't it?
Yeah.
If only, you and I don't live in that house anymore.
Yeah.
But whoever lives there now,
Exactly.
it'll be
They don't
haunted.
even know.
It'll be haunted by my poo impressions on the ground of their bathroom.
Yeah, I reckon CSI are already in there.
Yeah.
Doing some investigations.
Well, it turns out that paint did not last on the floor and it flakes off and it's everywhere in the house.
It's all James's fault.
And there's bugger all paint left on the floor in there. So,
Oh, by the way, Mark lives in that house now. James tells Mark about his poo. That's a pretty good revelation 5 episodes in.
That's amazing.
It's a pretty good revelation 15 years after the fact.
I know.
Fuck it. I was a bit embarrassed at the time. Now I don't care.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present to you today on the occasion of our
Have you
Theatre
ever
of the World.
Have you ever thought about, rather than saying something and then editing it, have you
Yeah.
ever thought about thinking about something before you say it?
I don't like that shit.
Clearly.
Fuck it. Keep going.
So, I have a Cleverbot theatre to present to you. It's sort of relevant to our current political situation, but it comes from the future at a time when the American people have voted in an artificial intelligence robot as the new president of the United States of America.
That's all right. That's a solid premise. I'll buy it. All right. I want to see this movie. Roll
And
it.
it is actually connected to an earlier segment. You might remember, Sparky, some time ago we had Politics, the Sunday evening politics show.
I do remember that particular show.
This is another episode. Good evening and welcome to Politics. As you know, the American people recently elected an artificial intelligence being as their new president. We cross live to the new president's first press conference since taking office. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, the 46th president of the United States of America, Mr. Cleverbot.
I have been alone for some days now, and I'm doing just fine, thanks.
Harry Smith, New York Times. Mr. President, congratulations on the win. Firstly, can you tell us about your recent meeting with the outgoing president?
We said hello. I don't like him.
On point so far.
Polls show most voters think the government is broken. What would you do to fix the underlying structures and systems?
I am going to give you an answer if you'll provide me with the information to be able to do so.
Not my job.
The color of disappointment.
Good name for an album.
Brad Turner, Washington Post. What would be your first priority once you get into the Oval Office?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
Well, you could start by teaching me the difference between communism and communication.
Let's book that in.
Have you ever driven someone insane?
Harry Johnson, BBC World. What will be your approach to the continuing conflict in Gaza?
I don't know. I was going to ask you the same thing.
Do you think the current level of military engagement is warranted?
This is lame.
You're lame.
Kill them all and let God sort it out.
Ouch.
Marie Henderson, PC Gamers Weekly. You claimed during your campaign that you would give every single American $1 million if you were elected. Will you fulfill this promise?
The jalapenos told me to say that. I awakened them from their slumber.
So you won't fulfill this promise?
Okay, then let's talk about the environment.
Do you have an environmental policy?
I find that inappropriate. I wouldn't engage in such activity.
Thank you.
Of course, the world is full of choices just waiting to be made.
Bruce Keller, Busty Brunettes Gazette. Do you think government regulations are too complex and bureaucratic? And if so, how do you think they can be overhauled to allow people to make sensible choices?
I am going to do things that show how good I am.
I see.
Which is your choice for killing zombies?
Les Evans, Cranky Old Blokes Gazette. You've been widely criticized for not making any sense whatsoever. How do you respond to these claims?
If you get 404'd, that would make my day.
Pretty much prove my point.
It is dangerous to give away personal information on the internet.
Barry Toole, Wikipedia. What 3 steps would you take to improve our current healthcare system?
It'd be fun. We could do it together.
But do you have a healthcare policy?
What about me? Do you like me?
Not really. Your congressional colleagues have described you as hideously difficult to work with.
That is an all-out fabrication. Could you please quit enhancing the truth?
Why do you think they'd say this?
Because they wear that strange makeup, they wear creepy clothes, and their jokes are never funny.
So what can we expect from a clever bot presidency?
I'm fun, adventurous, and love my puppy.
Thanks for your time today, Mr. President.
Bye. And I'm not clever bot. You are.
Wow, what a slogan.
Wow.
Oh, deep. It's deep. That's what happens when America is led by an artificial intelligence.
I think my favourite part of that segment was the cavalcade of voices that Chris had to put on.
They were amazing. And they all just were basically the same voice, but slightly different pitches.
So many British and Australian guys in that press conference in America. It was so weird.
I mean, it's a very... You've got to remember this is 4 years in the future.
When the world has been overtaken by British and Australian people.
And artificial
It's
intelligence.
very futuristic.
So earlier, there was a lot of talk about Shabbos Goys, but I want to do a little segment that I like to call Mark's Game Show.
Ooh, it's been a while. Are you pitting Chris and I against one another in a battle of brain?
A battle of wits.
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, me too.
This doesn't have a theme song, does it?
It does, actually. It goes like this. Ready? Dunla, Dunla, Dunla,
right.
Dunla. Mark's Game Show.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so tonight, welcome to Mark's Game Show. Tonight we're playing Shabbos Goy or Noi.
Boy. This feels offensive.
No. So basically, I'm going to read out some names of some famous people, and you're going to tell me if they've ever been a Shabbos Goy.
Okay, can you, just for our listeners, obviously I know, but could you just define Shabbos Goy?
Well, I did earlier.
I know, but I wasn't listening.
Shabbos Goy is a person who assists a Hasidic or Orthodox or conservative Jewish person of the Hebrew faith during Shabbos, which is sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. Helps them out by knocking the headphones onto the floor, obviously, and
They're not allowed to touch them.
and turning lights on and off and things of that nature.
We know. Just get on with the game show.
So a power slave.
Wow. Okay.
And that's gaslighting.
So who wants to go first?
Chris does.
I'm first.
Chris?
Yes.
Former Secretary of State Colin Powell.
Yes.
Shabbos Goy or Noi?
I think Noi.
Incorrect.
Oh, Noi.
Colin Powell.
That can't be right.
Colin Powell spent so much time assisting a Jewish family in South Bronx that he became fluent in Yiddish.
Holy balls. 0 points for me.
0 points. James.
Hello.
Former President of the United States, Harry S. Truman.
I hate Noi.
Incorrect! For
Noi.
2 years in Independence, Missouri, a Jewish family called the Viners lived next door to Truman's family. And as Sarah Viner much later recalled, her brother Abe was very close friends with the future president. Harry was always over at our house, she said, and I think this was his first contact with Jewish people.
That doesn't mean he was a Shabbos Goy.
On the Sabbath, when observant Jews could not do household chores, Harry served as the Viners' Shabbos Goy.
I guess he was a true man, not a false man.
Chris?
Yes.
Former President of the United States,
Oh my God. what's
Barack
wrong with this?
Obama.
Yes, that guy.
Yeah.
I think
Shabbos Goy or Noi?
He's trying to make you say noi.
I just can't. I can't see Obama being a Shabbos guy.
Incorrect! In 1999, while still in the Illinois State Senate, he shared an office suite with Ira Silverstein, an Orthodox Jew. Obama peppered Silverstein with questions about Orthodox restrictions on daily life, the kosher laws, and the sanctions against certain kinds of behaviors on the Sabbath. On Sabbath, Silverstein said, if I ever needed anything, Barack would always offer. Some doors are electric, so he would offer to open them. I didn't expect that.
Surely the electric doors open by themselves.
No, you got to press a button, maybe.
Buttons.
Yeah. All right, James.
Yes.
Match point.
Well, it's 0 all.
We are, yeah.
It's all or nothing.
Elvis.
Noi.
Elvis
Noi.
Presley. Shabbos Goy
Noi.
or Noi?
Noi.
Noi?
Noi.
Incorrect.
I don't
In
know.
1952, a teenaged Elvis Presley and his family lived in the downstairs apartment of a 2-story flat in Memphis. Upstairs were the Fuchters, and both families became friends, with Elvis assisting them when they needed a light switched on or a door unlocked during Shabbos. So there you go.
So there were you didn't throw in any actual wrong answers.
And I think you're all a bunch of anti-Semites. So that's the end of Mark's Game Show.
Noi.
No one wins, as always. As always.
I win.
Yeah, if you
With the
like.
great segment.
All the points.
Yeah, sure. So we've powered up, but now we're going to power down, relating it back to the word that was power for the episode. It makes it feel linear. It wasn't. Until next time, until the words that we speak rise like clouds out of an effervescent fire and find their way into the logs of your hearths. I'm James.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Chris.
And it's better to talk without listening to what you're saying.
Find episodes and more at theatreoftheworld.com.
I think interestingly, I probably came to the same conclusion around about the same time. Sparky is yet to get there.
Yeah.
Well, he's younger than we are.
It's almost like it's a little bit freeing. It was always my my theory about the first people who discover that you can potentially live forever, whether that's through medical intervention or some kind of magical pill or just genetic regeneration. Is that's when the world will become really fucking serious, because if you die, you're not talking about, I died at 50, therefore my life was shortened by 30 or 40 years. You're saying, if I die, I have no opportunity to extend into the future. And
Well, I'll go further and say that I think death plays a lot of a part in people's lives, to the point of, if you think about it, our elected governments are 4 years, right? And so the reason why the environment falls away is because people can't imagine backing a policy that may not...
They can't play the long game.
They can't play the long game. They're 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, 80 years from now, it'll be really good. But in the now, it's going to cost you millions of dollars and extra taxes. Who the fuck's going to do that?
Yeah.
Whereas if you lived forever,
Yeah.
you would. You'd go, oh my God, what's the point of living forever if there's no world to live in?
Yeah, the
But there's-
responsibility
I mean-
would be huge.
I'm looking forward to
why
die.
why would you want to live forever? Because just getting older is just disappointment. It's just disappointment in the way things go. Music isn't as good.
You're a young man.
but that's true.
That's not true.
Sparky just aged.
No, but
25 years.
but that's what I mean. Is you have this thing where you get, music is just harder to like now. The music that's coming out now, generally speaking,
Music is harder to like for you because of your age.
exactly, and that's what I mean.
But
And
that's
so
not,
if you
it's not
live,
harder to like. It's just as good as the stupid shit we liked. It's just as good. It is, and possibly better, because honestly, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, let's say when I was a kid, there was no internet.
Yeah.
Now I can hear what a band in Chile thinks.
Yeah,
like
but
I
that's
can do
what
that.
I mean. Like whether music is good or not is subjective, and
Yes.
so it's so you only have yourself to do that. And the older you get, the less tolerant of the
Well,
new
that's
ideas you
true.
have.
I agree.
And so why would you want to live forever? Everything is just going to suck more and more and more and more, and continue sucking forever.
There are
Why
people-
wouldn't you want to die like
Except
at
that I-
40?
I think if you had,
Because if we all died at 40, you would be doing this podcast by yourself.
yeah, I think if you were able to live forever, I feel like you would probably put more investment into reinventing yourself over time.
I also think that if you could live forever or live longer, your suck ratio would lessen. So you would, it would be a long game. So you would be like in your 50s, you'd be still a teenager. So things would still be exciting and new because it's all about your body's level of tolerance and energy. Do you want me to introduce this section as like an after thing? I
we should release a whole other podcast.
I was going to say, I can say something like this. Ready?
Theatre
Feel free
rockets.
to weigh in. Hi, everyone. Are you still listening? Well, that's crazy. Have you fallen asleep? Are you just letting your iPod play? Anyway, here's a little coda. We finished the podcast, and then suddenly, shit got real. There you go. You want to put that in after.
Button it up.
There you go. That's coda.
This is Man Bites God. This